Hello YouTube, this is a video that I'm making about some reading that I've been doing, in particular on the subject of archery. I realise I've done a lot of archery videos now that I think of it, even though other aspects of military technology, of course, are just as interesting. The siege, the swordsmanship, pike mechanics, things like that, and I'll probably be making videos on all that kind of thing. One group I've been interested in a lot these days is the Byzantine. Byzantine's very interesting. They were, of course, the continuation of the Roman Empire, and the Byzantines in themselves, the Eastern Roman Empire, continued for 1,000 years until the fall of Constantinople in 1453. The particular book I'm reading is this, 3 Byzantine Military Treatises by George T. Dennis. It's a very good book. It is essentially translations of a military manual. Now let's see if I can find the passage that I want for later, because I am going to be this subject is going to be from this book specifically. As you can see, it teaches okay, I can't really get it to work, but you can sort of see there, you see there's Greek, and then there's an English translation. The quality of this translation, I'm not sure how good it is necessarily, but I think it's fairly good. Most of my friends who know this topic a bit more than me haven't had any major complaints, which is probably a bit better. Particularly what I'm looking at here is this passage here in the anonymous Byzantine treatise on strategy. This was written apparently by a retired combat engineer around the middle of the 6th century. This may sound very good, but it's actually just written at the back of the book. The middle of the 6th century, for those who don't know their centuries, of course, if you want to know, the numbered century is one more than the actual number of years. Put it this way, 19th century is the 1800s. Put it that way, just work backwards or forwards. Think of it that way. 20th, the 2000s and the 21st century, just work your way back from there. Think of it that way. The 11th century is the 1000s, so in other words, 1000 to the year 1000 to 1100 is the 11th century. Put it that way. Let's see. What I'm looking at is a section on training for power of fire. In other words, a way of training archers in the military across the empire in a standard manner in how to increase the power of their archery shooting. So, and it says here, power of fire may be achieved either by using a bow, which is not too easy to draw, or a long arrow, which means the bow will have to be pulled farther, which is true. The further you pull back the bow, the more power you need to put into it. Most bows, like this one here, is calibrated at 28 inches. This bow is calibrated to have a 30-pound pull weight at 28 inches. If you pull back 30 inches, you are adding the amount of power you are putting into the arrow, which means you're also expending more energy to pull it back further. So having to pull back a longer arrow to the same point means that you will of course be drawing back more. The most powerful shots are of course to the cheek or to the nose, is considered, or to the ear even. A shot pulling back merely to the breast is not all that particularly powerful, because of course you're not pulling back as fast, you're not pulling back as much energy in the arrow. Now, the way they suggest is, it says, the best way of proceeding is by competition among the men in training, and they figured out to making this device thing to do this, and this device thing is the subject of my research and what I'm about to tell you today in this video. Research says it is essentially this. I'll give you the description. It's essentially a stick with something on top and this, and it has degree markers. I'll read you the actual thing. Set up a measuring rod vertically upon some sort of base. Fix a wooden disc at right angles to the rod. On the disc upper surface, draw a number of straight lines to the center, no less than 360. Stick a cylindrical iron pin through the center of the disc and fix this pin, and on this pin fix a circular wooden target to be fitted over the plate to be fitted over the disc as a target, no less than 3 fingers thick, and the diameter of the circle about half a meter. 3 fingers thick 1/2 meter diameter. Let the circle be attached to the pin so that it will be neither too rigid nor too easily moved when shaken by arrows. Then fire at the circle using arrows with blunt iron heads instead of points. The lines inscribed in the circle on the disc indicate the stronger or weaker impact of the bow. A weaker shot will turn this circle, say, only 1 degree, the stronger shot 2 or more degrees. Now, what this is saying, as you can see in my version, I should point out, credit for this interpretation goes to my brother and my friend Ben Smith, who were much better, more competent than me at figuring it out. As you can see, that we have degree markers. You can see all the little lines there around the edge. Each one of those lines, which goes straight through, I should point out, is only is for every 5 degrees. So 5, 10, 15, 20 degrees. It says no less than 360 lines at the center. That means that around the edge there'll be 720 points at least, which means 1 for every 1/2 degree. In theory, unless of course someone does a weird odd number, but I think the idea is that we're looking at 360 lines through the center, so in other words lines of diameter, which means of course 720 points, which means 1 point every 1/2 degree. Of course they're talking about moving at 1 or more, at least 1 degree for a weaker shot. Let's see. Of course 3 fingers thick, as you can see by my fingers. I have fairly big fingers, I think, but that's fairly thick. The standard unit of a dactyl, which is a finger, is 0.0197 meters, so that's roughly 2 centimeters. So that's pretty good there. So that's very thick. If you think about it, 1/2 meter across, 6 centimeters thick. That is a big hunk of wood. I think we can all agree that is going to be very heavy and very hard to move with an arrow. So obviously these archers must have been using pretty powerful bows. I don't know exactly how powerful these bows were, but based on what other archers used generally in militaries, put it this way, your standard English war bow, these were the high-powered war bows. No, they weren't as powerful as everyone thinks they were. They could puncture armor like Swiss cheese. They were still damn good. They were around the 100 to 150 pound mark. I'm willing to bet these Byzantine bows were at least 50 to 70 pounds, if not a lot more than that. But this is of course foot bows. Foot bows are going to be more powerful than horse archers bows. Horse bows will of course have less power because it just has to do with being able to brace yourself while on top of a horse, and not only that, maneuverability and speed and rate of fire and all that kind of thing. One thing which I like about this description, actually, I should point out this diagram this thing has no pictures about any of these things. Both my brother and my friend were both able to come up with roughly the same result, and I've got this here just showing what was come up, just pretty much my essentially imagination of what they came up with. I've got this thing on Flickr, so I'm going to include it. As you can see, I have got it wrong. This measuring rod is apparently 1.8 meters, another 6 foot, not 1.5 meters, which is 5 foot. I was off by a meter. I was just going by what seemed reasonable for shooting at. So clearly I'm wrong there. That was my guess, and I was wrong. A standard measuring rod is a kanon. Don't know how you're actually supposed to pronounce that. It's in Greek, ancient Greek specifically. But one thing I like about this is that it shows that any person who's reasonably confident can actually look at this, read it, and figure out what it's supposed to look and tell people how to build it, which is why you don't need it, and it does reduce the cost of sending this manual all around the empire, which was fairly large in the 6th century, if I'm not mistaken. That's about it. I mean, no, I think that's about it. I think my next topic might be on the evolution of Greco to Macedonian warfare, going from the end of the Mycenaean era to the end of the Hellenistic era. It should be an interesting video, and another one will be on the changes of warfare in the Renaissance, and another one on why the Dark Ages weren't quite so dark as everyone thinks. Bye. I probably wasn't looking at the camera that much. Oh well.